Hello, listeners. Welcome back to another episode of the No Nay Never podcast. I am your host, Natalie Bromley, and this week we are looking back about that disappointing result at home against Chelsea, and we are looking ahead to what might be a winnable game away at Brentford this weekend. I am joined, as ever, by regular panellists Rich Steele and Tom Whittaker to dive straight into it. Gentlemen, how are we?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Good. Well, I think we're going to have a bit of a general chat about where we are. Obviously, we know the weekend was a disappointing result. And I think where I sit with this is that we constantly hear the narrative that, a home game against Chelsea is not going to define how the season goes, blah, 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 blah. But the reality is that we've got no points at all from any of the top sides in the division, what we would call the established big sides in the season. And whilst the fixtures have been unkind, I feel like we're all a little bit down in the dumps at the moment about the nature in which we are conceding these defeats. We've talked a lot in our group chat about what the side has become in terms of being a little bit timid and some early excitement about some fight and some spirit and some individuality in this side seems to have leaked a little bit. Rich, I'm going to come straight to you on this point. I guess let's kick us off with how you're feeling, because you articulated this very well in our group chat. Like, how are you feeling generally about where we are coming into the December period?
Articulate isn't normally a word that's so thank you. But no, I think, listen, obviously, if we was probably recording this podcast on Saturday evening or Sunday, I'd probably be a little bit more passionate, maybe with the fact that the cricket annoyed me early Saturday morning leading into a half-12 kickoff. I was kind of, but yeah, I just think where we are is, and people might comment on this and feel free if you agree or disagree on YouTube. I think for me, I'm not being negative. I'm being very realistic I wouldn't say that I've accepted the fact we're going down, far from it, because we're still well in the hunt, but I just can't see how we're going to stay up from a point of view of, I just don't think we're quite good enough. I think we're a good side and there's a lot of things we're doing well. I think there's certain positions on the pitch where we're looking weak. And then I'm also looking at it going, and this is a big factor, who else are we going to stay above? I think us and Leeds are a similar level. Yeah. I don't think West Ham are great, but they beat us.
It's a bit too strong.
And I think they beat us with us just being poor defending and real common theme, how many soft goals we're giving away. And then you're talking about, well, Chelsea's games are not going to define our season, but did I ever think Forest were really going to go down under Dyche? No. But they've just beaten Liverpool away from home. You look at Brentford, who was a team who were playing at the weekend, who have beaten Man United at home. They've beaten Liverpool at home. They were whether they're unlucky or not, but they missed a last-minute penalty in a tough away trip to Brighton, and they're going well. And then you kind of Fulham got a late winner, who's another team that I expect to be out of it. So for me, I'm just a bit like, I just cannot see us staying up, and lots of different factors in that. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. And I'm sure me and Tom are both going down to London at the weekend. So I'm doing different flights and different journeys to get to Brentford this weekend. But, it might be all different if we come away with 3 points. But at this moment in time, I just don't think we're quite good enough at this moment in time, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really fair, balanced assessment. I think, Tom, from your perspective, one of the consistent comments coming out, particularly from major broadcasters who've been covering the game, was to say that Burnley seemed to lack quality in both boxes, both defensively and in attack. Anthony particularly being singled out as being quite wasteful in a lot of the opportunities that were presented to him to try and get something from the game, and defensive errors as well. I mean, do you share that view of Rich, or do you see anything in the rest of the side that maybe with a little bit of tweaking, or maybe with a bit of boosting in the January transfer window, could change this side and make a real go of this?
I don't think we've got the money to make up the quality gap, and that's why relegation has been the promoted teams every year. for the last couple of years. There just is a big gap now. I agree with Richard. At no point in pre-season throughout the season I thought there's the worst team not out there really. Excuse me. We picked up points in the games where you think we should be picking points up in, and I think you made a really good point at the start, which is that it's not just that we, you can say, oh, we've lost to Chelsea, they're a good side, we've lost to Arsenal, they're a good side. It's the fact that we don't get any points in any of these games. How many have we been competitive in, really? Liverpool could have had a point, Man United could have had a point. Arsenal, I didn't come off feeling too despondent because they're a level above, in my opinion. I saw that last night as well against Bayern Munich. But Chelsea on Saturday, I felt really deflated because they just didn't look that good to me, and I don't think they had to work particularly hard to beat us. I think the first half an hour we were the better side. As you said, we lacked quality in the final third. The final ball wasn't there. You got Anthony in a couple of situations, and we've seen similar this season with Brun Larsen as well. You move the ball nicely, but they haven't got the pace or the guile to just turn a kind of a ball in behind the defender into a clear chance on goal. And I mean, we're probably not got time for the Anthony debate now, but I think it's probably our time he was rested or someone else was given a chance there. But that was the biggest disappointment for me, is that I thought after that half an hour, as you said as well, poor in both boxes. It's another simple cross in the box that we don't defend. Chelsea go 1-0 up, and after that we just seem to get scared of them. We seem to just sort of play for a 1-0 defeat after that, it seemed to me, and until we made those subs in the last 15 minutes, we were so passive. We were just standing off them. And I've seen loads of Burnley fans saying, oh, well, if you press these teams, they'll zip it round you and they'll beat you 4 or 5. We pressed them in the first half an hour and they struggled to cope with it. And it was as soon as they went 1-0 up, we thought, okay, then you're better than us. It's as if Parker's thinking, keep the goal difference down now. We know we're going to lose this one anyway. And it's going to be crunch time this month now, because we've played all these top teams now. We're coming up to a run against the kind of the mid-table teams. And if we're playing like this against them and losing against them, then it will be curtains, and it'll be curtains pretty quickly. But conversely, as Richard said, if we go to Brentford and get 3 points on Saturday, you're suddenly looking at it in a new light.
Do you think we can go to Brentford and get 3 points on Saturday? I did say this, and everybody in the group chat laughed at me. I was like, we've got 2 winnable games. Everyone's like, Natalie, sit down, shut up. Do you really? We'll come on to this in a minute in the preview, but a yes or no? Do you really think a win at Brentford is doable?
Because it's Brentford and they've got a 15,000 capacity stadium or whatever, you look at that and you go, that's winnable. It's similar to Bournemouth. But if that team and players were at, let's say, I don't know, Wolves or something, and they had that team and players, I think there's the psychological thing with Brentford, because they're a small club, you think we should be winning there. Well, they're miles better than us, I would say, and I've really been surprised actually how well they've done, given that they sold Duemo and Whittaker and obviously a new manager in there as well. And I'm not going there with any particular confidence, to be honest. I'd be happy if we got a point there.
Yeah. Okay, Rich, one of the major points there that Tom's talked about is the passiveness in our play. And he's talking about Chelsea having an off day. I'm not as buoyant or disappointed, I guess, maybe it's the other way. I'm not as disappointed with a potential missed opportunity here in thinking that, Chelsea were there for the taking, they were really, really poor. Because for me, Chelsea never really needed to get out of first gear. We were so passive and we effectively served them up a training game, which to me was really disappointing. That we ran at them a couple of times and they didn't really deal with it. But I also at the same time never really felt like we were going to get anything from the game either. To what extent do we place the culpability for all of this display on Scott Parker's shoulders? Is he telling them to be? Is he encouraging a fear in their play? And we know he's a very cautious manager. We know he's very defensive, but is he the man to instill that fearless aggression, which we talked about Sunderland having and how they got themselves a point at Arsenal? We don't seem to display those characteristics. How much of this is down to Parker?
I think you look at it and you go, well, even in the Championship, Parker would play a little bit more cautious. I think from a tactical point of view, he's allowing their back four to have the ball, which in some senses is fine, because you don't want to press too much and get too tight, because these top teams can pop it around you. But then the one thing for me is we're very, very we're not even like compact, almost like very squashed in the way we're defending, because like we're almost like our strikers and midfield are almost letting the Chelsea defence have it, but then we're like pushing very high up the pitch. So you kind of seen from the goals, and there was another time where Steph got turned by Palmer. We're really pushing high and we're getting caught in behind, and we don't have the centre halves to play that way. So we're not playing as high as we did under Company. It was right on the halfway line because we're not pressing as high. But we're like, I almost don't mind letting their centre halves have the ball if you're kind of playing a proper low block, like we did against Liverpool, against the best teams, where then you go, well, you're not going to hit us in behind either, and then we're going to look to counter attack. So to me, we're not doing one thing or the other at the moment. We're not pressing, but we're also not playing deep. So we're just getting caught in this kind of like no man's land a little bit, and goals are just coming in really easy situations. I think centre half's a big issue for us, and I think you look at the Everton game and the attacking Keane centre half, who were men leaders, organising that back four. Estev's struggling. Twanzebe, in my opinion, is not good enough. I'd actually rather have Ekdal centre half, but I understand why he's not playing him. He's almost trying to play a little bit higher with Twanzebe, but I'd rather just play a little bit deeper and play Ekdal, because I just think he's a better defender and he's a better leader. I think Hartman's excellent on the ball, but as a defender, I think he's weak. And I don't think he's come under much criticism. He's weak at one-on-one defending. He lets crosses in and he lets people go off him too easily. Look how many goals come from his side when crosses come into the box. So Walker, to me, is the only defender. Hartman's very good going forward and very lovely on the ball. And I think because he is good on the ball, he gets a lot of people think he's fantastic. And I think he's a very good. I think he's a good player, but I don't think his defensive work has a lot to improve. But listen, he's still adapting to this level, and you've seen kind of players come into the Premier League from abroad at top clubs. You look at Wirtz at Liverpool, who struggle to adapt. So I just think defensively we're just not getting it right. We're not defending our box well enough at all. Too many goals are coming from crosses, and we're allowing that ball over the top, and teams are just picking us off because the two centre halves aren't dealing with it effectively. Now, Steph did have a better game in patches, but he also got turned by Delap a lot, trying to press high. So for me, I'd almost, if we're going to play the top teams, rather go a little bit deeper when we're defending, not get caught with that ball over the top, and then try and hit them on the counter attack. But where I'm worried is, and I don't see how this improves, is how are we going to improve getting better at defending crosses? That's my worry. Because I look at it from the Leeds, we conceded a lot of crosses. I mentioned it on the podcast, and they missed chances, and we got away with it against Leeds. And Wolves, we conceded 2 goals from crosses. Then we played Arsenal, set piece and a cross. Then West Ham might have been, we lost 4-3 in it. No, 3-2. They were 2 out of 3 or something like that with crosses. And then, like, same again at the weekend. Maybe not the last goal, but the first goal was from a cross. So that's a big worry for me. Really, really big worry. And we're conceding the most shots on goal by any team. And Dubravka saved us. And then against West Ham, he had a poor game. And you can't ask him to keep bailing you out every time. So both final thirds were not performing that well, and that's where the big money comes in for the Premier League, like Tom says.
The middle seems to be fine. It's just the other end. The final
wingers are an issue. In my opinion, we've not got one winger who's good.
We knew that was going to be an issue, though. From the beginning.
And I don't think we've got. I'd still rather have Ekdal in, but that's kind of much of a muchness, really. And I think Esteve would be fine if he had a Tarkowski next to him. But I think overall he's struggled to adapt. And we all like him, but he's not done as well as probably what we all thought he would. So for me, we're just not getting it defensively. We're not getting it right. And if he's not willing, which I know we won't do to press, and I don't want him to go mad press. Just think we need to just drop a little bit deeper.
Yeah,
and then so that's kind of my summary of where we're at with that. So, yeah.
And an excellent summary it is too, Rich, as it always is. Thank you. I am going to take the pin out of the grenade and send it to Mr. Whittaker's way, because we have seen this on Twitter, so we have to address this point. This isn't something that we are driving, but given the situation at some of our rivals at the bottom of the table, Tom, is there a situation where we can have a conversation about changing the manager? Or is that a no-no for you? Where do you sit on that? Sorry.
Yeah, I don't think he's the major problem. I'm not a massive, I don't dislike the guy or anything, but I'm not a massive fan of him, particularly as a manager or as a personality. A little bit kind of drab and boring in on both respects, really. But when I look at how we're setting up the season, we're not winning games, we're not picking up points, but we're not getting pasted. And I think the major problem is just that the players aren't good enough. We haven't spent enough money to compete, and that's just always going to be the case, probably as long as we're owned by ALK. They haven't got money themselves. They've taken out loans to bring in these players, and we're just never going to be fishing in the market unless we can kind of have a couple of years where we stop up miraculously. Then we're never going to be fishing in the same market as everybody else. And if they sack Parker, who they're going to get in, I guess, is the question. And unless it was if they went abroad and got someone, like an Iraola type, someone from abroad that I don't know anything about, that would probably be the only way, because I can't see over the pool you'd be fishing in the UK what manager you get in that's going to do any better than him. So, I think he'll take us down. And I mean, last time it was more the manager's fault. I thought that we got relegated, and there was no suggestion that they were going to replace him, even though that probably would have been a better idea.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, if they're not going to get rid of him last year, then I don't think they're going to get rid of Parker this time. It's not. I don't think there's many that are kind of betting for his blood either at the games, and I can understand why.
Yeah, I think we've seen this mainly on the echo chamber, and sometimes people just putting some things out there just for the sake of putting content out there, and some of it's a little bit clickbaity, but I think some of it is a legitimate question, considering the bounces that some of other teams have had and how much better they look, because they've made the decision very early on to change their manager. It doesn't always work that way, by the way. I don't really think Leeds fans are calling for their managers' heads either. I think there is a reality here. Sticking with you then, Tom, a couple of penalty shouts from the game. It doesn't feel like it really matters that much anyway, because I always got the feeling from the game that if we'd have scored any of these goals, Chelsea would have just upped a gear and scored another one. And maybe I'm on my own with that thought, I don't know. But the first one, which I think is a bit of a weird one, where there was a situation where Chalobah placed his hand on the ball after Sanchez had passed to him following a restart, and then passed it back to Sanchez. I looked at the time and thought it was a bit odd. I was like, hang on a minute, surely they kicked the ball there. And I have now seen it back on the replays. That's a penalty to me. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, just before I go on to that, I'll just mention, I think quite a few Leeds fans are wanting Parker out, but I think that's more because they still haven't realised that they aren't a big club anymore. I just thought I'd make that point.
Feel better, Tom, for getting that off your
stuff. Yeah, I wanted that to be known.
Excellent. The record shall state. There we go. Sorry, penalties. Penalties.
There's a couple of recent precedents, aren't there? There's one where Arsenal did it. I think it was in the Champions League game. It might have been in a league game, I'm not sure. And it wasn't punished. And then there was one where Aston Villa did it in the Champions League last year, and it was punished, and it was a penalty. Now, it is a penalty. The rules say it's a penalty. The reason it's not given as a penalty is because it's Chelsea against Burnley. That's the reason that it's not refed in the same way. It's a silly thing. The commentator on Match Today said, "Oh, he's just used some common sense there." It's not about using common sense. It's about applying the rules. There's it's a bit of gamesmanship from them, just wasting a bit of time. He's took the goal kick. He's put his hand on it. It's a penalty. But because it's Chelsea against Burnley, it isn't going to get penalised. And we saw that in the second half as well. It's just we've seen it multiple times this season in this league, and we've seen it multiple times in previous seasons in this league. That's just how these games are refed, unfortunately.
Yeah, probably gets given for Chelsea if it's Dubravka and Steve doing that, isn't it? But there you go. Rich, the other one it's a slightly more awkward one. I still haven't quite figured out how Steve managed to get himself booked in this scenario. But there was, in the mandatory 7-minute spell at the end of the game where Burnley decided to wake up and start pushing to try and get something out of the game, there was a lot of gamesmanship. I don't like to use the word gamesmanship. I like to use the word cheating, and as I think that's a better narrative, and I think we need to stop giving these players excuses. But there was a lot of kerfuffle going on in our box, and Steve was getting pulled all over the place. Is there an argument there when the ball is in play, he gets absolutely pulled out of play? He ends up getting booked for it as well, and I don't fully understand why. We're all pretty clear that the first one was a penalty. Where do you sit with the second one being our technician?
Like I'm kind of in the middle of where match of the day and Tom are with the penalty. I'm like, it's one of them where, like you said, a letter of the law, it should be given, but it's one of them where stuff like that happens and you get on with the game. I don't know, but like the second one, in my opinion, listen, a referee's job is, is to kind of like try and get control of the game and communicate with the players. I'm looking at it from a player's point of view here, not from a fan. And it's, all the players, and you listen to them on the podcast, and there's many of them these days, say they like to referee, likes to communicate. So where I am with that, if there's a bit of pulling and tugging in the box, and the ref says once before a corner's taken, listen, and says to the players, stop that. That's fine, and gives you your warning. But then he did that, and then the tugging was still going on.
Yeah.
And then he warned him again and booked him again. So in my opinion, the second time he should have just let him tuck the corner, and then whilst the ball's in play, then if that Barry Shield's still doing it, well, then it's a penalty. Obviously, the ref can't give a penalty, a VAR can't give a penalty because the ball's not officially in play. But I just feel, this is how I would want the game to be refed. It's kind of like, right, corner, set piece, whatever, bit of tugging going on, right, let's say it's me and Tom, I'm defending, Tom's attacking, I'm tugging Tom. That sounds wrong if that got clipped.
I am absolutely cutting that.
If I'm pulling Tom's shirt and the ref comes over and said, listen, I'm watching you, don't do it again, then I'd let go. But and then the second, and then take it again if I'm still doing it, penalty. So I would personally like it to be officiated that way. So going to what Tom's was stating, a very letter of the law, it shouldn't be given as a penalty because the ball wasn't in play. But it's frustrating for me after he got a warning that the corner wasn't then taken. But I always look at these games and I go like, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because listen, penalties do change games, but the absolute ones of them were I'm going away fuming because they've not been given. No, not really. That's my.
Is that just because the rest of the game was really like?
That's exactly it. Because it's kind of like I almost feel like I was more annoyed when the one got given against Anthony because I felt like with second half we really give it a good goal. Where this game, there was it wasn't a bad performance. There was just nothing. There was just a nothingness. We just, to me, never seemed like we had a go. And people are like, we were on top the first half an hour. We got to the bar line twice. That was us being on top. Do you know what I mean? Like we didn't have
Parker said it was a good performance, which I kind of raised an eyebrow.
I think that's where Tom's coming on with Parker in it. But I think I like Parker. I think he's a thoroughly good guy.
Me too.
I think there's a lot of doorknobs in football, and he's definitely.
There's a lot of what in football?
Doorknobs, knobheads, but we're not allowed to say it, are we? So tried to get away with it, but you made me say it, Natalie, because you didn't get the reference. So
heads up would have been really useful. I was like, doorknobs. What is a doorknob?
I'm just literally sat here looking at the doorknob.
So, listeners, when you get your regular update that the None and Never podcast has been issued this week, and it has a swear wording on it, there's 2 instances in this one where it's not suitable for kids. So there you go. Deal with it.
But anyway, no, but I think he's an act. But most managers say that, don't they? But the West Ham game, he was actually really annoyed with the team's performance. So he's maybe looked back on that himself and gone, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I was a bit too emotional there. I don't know. But everyone's just media trained to hell, aren't they now? So with stuff like that, and it's one of them where I feel like if he comes out and is really emotional, says we were terrible, we were this and that, people would say he's kind of lost the dressing room, maybe. So, like I'm with Tom on the wider point. Like I am with Parker, and I think we've done the best we can with recruitment this summer, but we're still short. Yeah. For me, there's only a handful of players in that squad who are actually good enough for the Premier League, and that's where we're at the moment.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the reality of it.
Let's move on then. I mean, there's not an awful lot more we can say about that game other than what we have covered. I think the only things that I would add to this is that the own real quality that we've got in the squad, or when we're relying on Zian Fleming, which I think he's had a spell of really good games, but I think he's had some games where he's been invisible, and Anthony is clearly struggling at the moment. We have got such an obvious lack of creativity in terms of goal scoring opportunities that even if we manage to sort the defence out, we've still got an absolute mountain to climb in terms of scoring goals, which is a bit of an odd thing to say considering the first sort of 5 or 6 games of the season, we did manage to score goals and we were 2-3 goals in a game. So I don't really know what's going on there. I can't quite put my finger on why that has changed so much. But Tom, we're going to go back now to the Brentford game, and Rich covered this before and I've covered it as well. We're talking specifically about Jadon Anthony, who has been he's been a really amazing improved player, was a fantastic player for us last season, stepped up initially to the Premier League better than any of us, I think, hoped they would do, but is showing some signs of just not quite happening for him at the moment. And I'm not entirely sure it is that he needs a rest. He's just had an international break and I didn't see much improvement on Saturday either. I don't know whether it's the setup of the team or whether or not it's his individual struggles in that position. But we're going away to Brentford. It's going to be a tough game. Do we start by making any changes to that position? And if so, who?
Yeah, I think you have to. Generally speaking, I think you're a little bit wide of the mark in terms of goals. I think we've scored more than I'd expect us to, and especially away from home. You think our last 2 away games before this, we've scored 5 goals. I know obviously we lost at West Ham, the odd goal in 5, but I think defending is more of an issue for me at this stage than going forward. But Anthony's not really been involved in those 5 goals, I wouldn't have said. And for me, he needs a rest. I think the big question is, it's like, do you swap it with like just goals in mind, or do you swap it with? Because for me, Anthony, he works hard, but he ain't giving you a lot off the ball. And if he ain't contributing with the ball, then what's the point of him? So you could say you could put Hannibal there perhaps, and he'll give you a lot off the ball, even though he's not very talented on it. I'd perhaps be tempted to play Foster there just for a bit of pace.
Oh, that's interesting.
Get the pitch. I think that might be good. I think it was those 2 where Anthony got sent behind the defender and then he didn't even get a shot away because he was so slow that made me think of that. But I think that'd be interesting to see. I think that would be worth experimenting with. And then I would also like to see Edwards get a chance. I know he doesn't give you anything off the ball, doesn't work over. Not, what's Anthony giving us off the ball really? What's Chowner giving us off the ball? Not a lot, and then they're not giving us out with the ball either at the minute, I wouldn't have said. So to me, I think he deserves at least more than 20 minutes or something this season, hit the post against Arsenal. I was surprised he didn't come on Saturday as well.
Is his physicality not a concern though, particularly away at Brentford?
Physicality, it's a problem for Anthony as well, isn't it? It's a problem for Cullen. It's a problem for Hartman. It is a concern, yeah, but he's a better player. He's probably our best, technically, probably our best footballer. So to me, I mean, maybe you give him an hour and he gets marked out of the game by some big lad at Brentford and it doesn't work, fine. But give him a chance at least is what I'd say. I'd like to see him at least. I think it's a waste. Anthony playing 80, 90 minutes every week and Edwards getting 20 minutes out of the whole season so far. That doesn't make any sense to me. But
that's a really good point, actually. I do tend to agree with that.
Yeah, but I can understand why. But yeah, I'd like to see him get a go. But I think for me, it'd probably be Chowner and Foster either side of Fleming on Saturday.
What about you, Rich? Do you agree with that, or is there anything else?
No, not many people's mentioned Foster, and I've thought about it too because I think we need more physicality in the team. And I think both Foster and Hannibal do give you that. I think Foster's okay out wide, but the options, I think Brun Larson's just a no for me at the moment. Look, when we're doing a podcast with Tom Reesley, said he doesn't look match fit. Maybe that's the point, but just even if he gets match fit, you know, it looks like he's running in cement.
Yeah.
You know, if he was playing in the Vets League, I think he'd look okay. But no, I wouldn't. So he's out of the equation. Oh, Hannibal's one in here where like, it's just absolute. What do you do with him? Because there's one party where he gives you great energy.
Yeah.
He is talented on the ball. You know, you've seen that pass he made to Foster. He can do things, but then he does that spitting incident, which, do you know what, fair play to Burnley fans, other than somebody who I do know, which I'm not going to dive into, didn't defend him. You know, and then you just like, so you've got these thing with him, but we can't play Anthony. It looks like he's a yard off the pace.
Yeah, I agree.
And when I say yard off the pace, I don't mean like just running in a straight line like Brun Larson. He looks like when the ball's coming to him, he's like, oh, nervous. And when he gets the ball, all he's got at the moment is a pass back, you know, to either the fullback or the centre half.
And very sluggish in possession as well. It's like he needs to take a couple of touches before he decides. His mind's not sharp.
But that's the difference between the Championship and the Premier League is how well you can retain the ball, where's your next movement? And Anthony needs that extra touch. And I really like him, and he started well, and maybe a few tap-ins kind of masked his performances. But genuinely for me, I think the much of a muchness, and that's the issue. Like, I agree and I disagree with Tom. I think Tom answered his own question as to why Edwards isn't playing, because he will get marked out of games at this level. But I do think he's worth 20 minutes, half an hour, instead of Brun Larson when you need a goal, or the game's opening up a little bit and you've got more space.
Yeah.
So I'd probably go with Hannibal, and Shuana's got, he's in that Ogachoglu category for me. Shuana, where he'll do something really great, but then he'll go missing. Ogachoglu's the same. You know, when he gets on the ball, he looks great, but he goes missing. And they're just young kids, you know, and this is the thing, isn't it? They've got ability. Where Anthony, I think that's his level. But yeah, I think I'd probably start both Hannibal and Foster kind of and get that midfield a bit tighter, and kind of then get Foster a little bit closer to Fleming as well. Another thing is as well, which doesn't help the wingers, or I don't think helps the balance of the shape of the team, is when the fullbacks get it, the wingers are playing very narrow, so we're having to come inside all the time.
Yeah.
So we're not making the pitch as big as possible, and I don't think that's helping Anthony either, because he is someone who, when he can get out wide, he can put a decent ball in, or he can make a yard for himself. So that's one thing I'd like to see. If Parker is going to play with wingers who are tucked in, for me, yeah, I'd probably like to see Hannibal or Foster given a go, and they would add a little bit of physicality to the team. And I always feel like with Shauna, when he comes off the bench, he looks far better than he does when he starts.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Started quite well at the weekend, don't get me wrong, but feel like, again, same as maybe if Edwards comes on, just sometimes when the game opens up second half, it kind of helps some of your younger players or your less physical players in Shuana firstly, and then Edwards secondly.
Yeah. Okay, let's finish off then with the ball coming to you first, Tom. Score prediction. Do we win, and if so, by how many? This is Brentford, obviously.
Oh, it's just 2-0 Burnley. I says 2-0 Brentford, but we'll see. If it's 2-2, I'll be more than happy with that.
Yeah, a point would be a cracking result, actually. It'd stop the run of losses. I'd be very pleased with that. Rich?
Yeah, no, I think, listen, it's going to be a tough game. Like I mentioned earlier, like Brentford's beat United, beat Liverpool at home, beat someone else. I'm sure they beat someone else who's a good side, but anyway, like
they draw with Chelsea as well.
Yeah, and they played really well for large parts of that game. So I would take a draw, but at some point you've got to start winning, haven't you, against mid-table sides? So
beat United, didn't they? That's what you might be thinking of.
Yeah, but like at some point you've got to beat a mid-table side. But like for me, and I agree with Tom, against not the top sides. We've looked okay, like we've got a goal in us going forward, but we look defensively like we just don't look. We look to me just not insecure, but just a bit soft, a bit weak. So, and I would like to bring Ekdal back in. People may disagree on that and say he's not quick, but well, when you look at what happened to Twanzebe for their second goal, then you're like, and Twanzebe's like Bambi on ice on the ball as well. So at least Ekdal is better on the ball. Yeah. So that's the 3 changes I would like to make.
Love it. Well, listeners, let us know what changes you would make and let us know what your score prediction is. Please drop us a comment in the comments below or drop us a line on social media if you're listening to the podcast version of this episode. Whilst you're doing that, do click that subscribe button and hit follow. It does help us with our numbers and just give you an alert when your favourite podcast is now out. That is all we've got time for. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Rich, as ever. Fantastic insight into all things Claret and Blue. We will be back next week looking back at that Brentford game and looking ahead to the festive fixture to see whether or not the Clarets can get enough points on the board to go into the January period in an FA Cup run outside of the relegation zone. Let us see. I've been Natalie Bromley. This has been the No Nay Never podcast. Until next time.
The No Nay Never podcast is brought to you in association with the talkSPORT Fan Network. Our host and editor is Natalie Bromley, and the show is produced by Matt Moss. Our resident statistician is Dave Roberts, and our FPL expert is Adam Dennett. The Analysis Show team is collectively Tom Whittaker, Rich Steele, George Poole, Charlotte Rigby, and Adam Dennett. Our music is provided by George Gaskell, and our newsletter team is headed up by Jamie Smith. If you don't already, you can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting nonaynever.substack.com. Thanks as ever go to our partners talkSPORT. We are proud to be associated with the talkSPORT Fan Network.